Hi, this is Sheridan,
And this is Colleen.
and together we are bringing you the Love Talk podcast, where we will talk about real life experiences
With a practical biblical perspective.
telling the truth in love. Hello, and welcome to Love Talk. And guess who is in the studio? There you go.
Colleen in the house.
Colleen in the house, and this is Sheridan. And today's topic, sex and...
Intimacy.
All right.
Heavy topic.
What,
So you said.
Yeah, that's what I would say. I said that. I did.
You did. And it
What
could
do
be.
you know?
It is.
It could be, but yet, it's something that's very important, part of life, part of the scripture. It shouldn't be a taboo.
No,
It should
but
be
it is.
something that be discussed.
Yes.
We
Well,
have.
that's why we're discussing it.
All right. And
Because
we're going
it
to
is
speak the
taboo.
truth in love, right?
We do. Always.
All right.
Always the
Okay.
truth in love.
So
In Jesus' name.
why this topic though? Why sex and intimacy? And I mean, this is a Christian broadcast. We're all believers. Good.
Yes. Just declaring.
Just declaring hands. Why do we need this topic? For me, I believe with all my heart that God is the author of love.
Absolutely.
He is the author of intimacy, sex. He determined from Genesis, from the book of Genesis,
Correct.
the nature of relationship
Yes.
and notice that a husband and wife should experience.
Absolutely.
And because of his nature, he is able to take something that is beautiful and express it, allow us to have his same ideals or expectation. And being a child of God, that doesn't mean that we shouldn't be experiencing it. And I know there are some people, and I've heard about it, who grew up either really in a controlled environment. They were not taught about sex. They did not even use the word sex. I know there's some environment where people, mention going to church. They don't really talk about it. Although I believe now you're hearing it more. But I
Definitely.
think, coming from this table, we need to enlighten women because, yeah, though we're about women, we want to encourage you to be the best for your partner,
Absolutely.
for the person that God has placed in your life. And that has to do with you recognizing your greatness and the ability that God has placed in you indeed. And that relates to sexual experiences as well
Intimacy.
within the context of marriage.
Absolutely.
Okay.
I'm just thinking what to say after that.
What to
'Cause you
say
put
after
everything in
that?
that nice little box. It's got a
I
nice
did.
bow on it, and
Whoa.
it's just like, okay, you can go home now.
But whatever. I'm not going to get away from
No,
this.
at all, no,
But
at
I
all.
think if you mentioned the book of Solomon, I tell you people, right? They don't want to
She's
talk.
pointing at me, people. I don't know why she's pointing at me, but she's
I
pointing.
tell. It's interesting that even in the Old Testament, there is this book that is loaded with so many expressions of love, intimacy,
Admiration.
metaphor, yes, going on, and it's like we forget that is in the Bible.
Yeah.
And
Why do we forget though? Why is it not? Because you hear people talk about Solomon all the time, obviously,
Yes.
the prominent person in the Bible, his name is mentioned a lot, but we don't talk about Solomon
yeah,
when he's singing, basically,
as it relates to
as
that,
it relates to that,
as
yeah.
it relates to that, isn't interesting because I think he's very graphic.
Very.
When in his descriptive and poetic words, you can, the visual imagery comes up, especially if you're an artist, you see it, you see it immediately.
All its glory.
But I always say, all its
All
glory.
its glory.
But I always say that, God allow it to be there so that he opens up our eyes and we could learn something. And yes, some people might say, oh yeah, Solomon, he wasn't this and he wasn't that. He had so many wives and everything and concubine, but God knew all of that. And still he put it in. So we want to take it in the purest form And as the Bible said, all things were written for our example.
Mm.
And here it leads us to ask the question, is there a difference between sex and intimacy? And which comes first?
Ooh, that's like the chicken and the egg.
The chicken and the egg experience.
I think for me, I think intimacy has to come first.
Why
I
is
think that
that?
has to come first because you have to have
Mhm.
a connection, or you should. No, let me rephrase that. You should have a connection. Remember, we're talking about sex and intimacy within the confines of marriage, obviously, right? And even if we are talking to friends or family, there's certain people you will speak to and disclose certain things to, and other people you won't, because you don't have a level of connection with that person. And so the same with your spouse. If the intimacy is not there, i.e. the connection, the emotional connection, the psychological connection, even down to financial connection, because any things that come into your marriage can affect the intimacy of the two of you. So if you don't have that connection together, taking away the act of sex, if you don't have that connection, and particularly for women, we need to feel a certain way before we can kind of release ourselves in the sexual capacity or nature. So if you're not feeling that connection to your spouse, you're not going to be able to willfully or to enjoy the sexual act. So I think the intimacy has to come first. You have to get to know your partner's likes and dislikes. You have to understand your partner. Your partner has to understand you. And all of that is the build-up of intimacy. Sex is just is the act, is the final act for me.
Right.
After we've gone through all the other scenes of the play. Let's put it in that regard.
I like that. All the scenes of the play.
Yes, because it's
Better known as
foreplay. Yes, of course. I didn't even think about that. People,
Yes.
she's on the ball. Yes, exactly. And that's why we have
Yeah.
foreplay, because we have that fore stuff that has to come. And that doesn't have to be, again, physical foreplay. For me, again, we're going back to like love languages and things like that. For me, acts of service. So if my husband does acts of service, things around the house, gets my car fixed, whatever, those things
that
to
gets
me,
you
they
excited.
well, won't say excited, but it makes me think, oh, he's thinking about me, and I feel more connected to him because he's thought about something that I like to have done. He's done it for me, and you know, kind of scratch my back, scratch yours, kind of situation. So, you know, so those things, and that's built up long before you get into the bedroom.
I know I was going to say so.
That's long before.
So intimacy even starts before you get into the bedroom.
Of course.
All right.
Of course. Has to.
So therefore, what I'm hearing from you is that in order for a woman to feel comfortable, to be in her flow, she needs this level of intimacy.
I would say so. Colleen Robinson Hunt said so.
She said so. And I will second that motion. And for us to break down what's the intimacy about, we can talk about different aspects of intimacy, which is important. And the reason being, if we are not aware of what we need, we can't verbalize it, we can't discuss it, because part of intimacy really involves a great deal of communication, and that is key.
Yes.
Because I'm saying, when you're in that arena, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
It can't be about the sky, it can't be about the green. You have to be able to articulate real emotional stuff.
Yeah.
And which leads that women, of course, these are not, you know, concrete for every individual, but these are basic things. They're saying that women need emotional connection.
Definitely.
That's where you feel valued. They're in tune, or they're connecting, or they're making an effort to understand how you feel.
Yes.
And that's important.
Yes.
And not only that, is that he is willing to communicate, and he appreciates listening to you as well. And not only that, quality time.
Yeah.
Spending time. Because I've heard of persons talking about relationship and relating physically, and it's like, oh, you only coming by me when you're ready for some.
Yes. Yep.
As a woman, you want to know that they're coming to you because they appreciate time with you as an individual, so that when you recognize that he has this natural desire to be with you, it's like you relax.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
relax, and
Yeah.
anything can happen.
That's right.
Once you relax,
That's
anything
right.
can happen.
Mm.
And then they talk about the importance of having trust and security. Women need partners whom they can trust.
Yeah, that's a
And
big
this is a
one.
big one, and
That
probably
is
we
big.
can pause a little bit
Mm.
and let's talk about this idea of
Trust.
trust. And this too is important for you as women when you're choosing the right partner. All of these factors you have to take into consideration. Can he communicate with me? Will he listen to me? Will he make quality time for me according to what are your love languages and
Mm.
based on your needs? Because these are the same tools as they were that you will need for a healthy, intimate life, and also one where you feel comfortable to be intimate in terms of sexual or physical connection.
Yeah.
So, trust.
Mm.
You want to spread a little light on that?
I think we all, I mean, we all know what trust is,
Mm-hmm.
and we know once it's broken, it is really hard to fix, if at all, sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
But I think for women, um, we do need to feel protected and guarded, and know that we can trust this person who you've entrusted
Mm-hmm.
to protect you and to guide you, because that's what the Bible, talks about.
Mm-hmm.
So in terms of him being that protector and that provider to some extent, and I'm not talking about financial provision, I'm talking about provision in terms of that intimacy and emotional
Mm-hmm.
connection, you have to feel, because going back to the act then of sex,
Mm-hmm.
as women, we receive,
Mm-hmm.
right? We take in, and then we hold.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're going to take in something from somebody and you're going to hold it and keep it, you need to be able to trust that person,
Yes.
right? You need to be able to trust that person. So you can't, I don't think a woman would feel amorous and aroused if her husband is somebody that she doesn't trust. She doesn't know if he's going to go out there and be talking about her in a derogatory way, or she can't trust him to be loyal, or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
She's not going to be willing to accept him. She's not going to be willing to receive him. And I think some men might miss that,
Mm-hmm.
that they think, oh, well, I'm doing what I have to do, and I'm providing, I'm doing all of this. But these things that you've mentioned, these harder,
Mm-hmm.
more intricate levels of intimacy,
Mm-hmm.
sometimes are not present. And I think that is what then causes challenges within the bedroom,
Yeah.
which then permeates and comes outside into the marriage as a whole.
Mm-hmm.
So trust is paramount, I think.
And as I said, it's easily broken,
Mm-hmm.
but not easily mended. It takes time, and that's why you have to be able to identify, can you trust, or can both of you trust each other, and both of you will need to commit to that level of, or creating that safe, trusting environment. And questions, again, here's where you'll be asking and trying to find ways, what do you need to feel safe
Yeah,
in this relationship?
absolutely.
What do you need so that you can trust me or trust this relationship and be able to articulate it?
That comes back to the communication, doesn't it?
Very
Because
much so.
again, you mentioned about not just about the weather and how was your day and those superficial stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Couples need to sit down and have deep conversations, not
Mm-hmm.
fleeting remarks, or
Yeah.
kind of jabs here, or a comment here under the table kind of thing. You need to be able to sit down as a couple and say, okay, look, what do you like, what do you don't like, those kind of conversations.
Mm-hmm.
And before there's problems, before there's an issue,
Mm-hmm.
try and speak about these things beforehand,
Mm-hmm.
or when the problem arises, nip it in the bud as soon as it arises, so that it
Mm-hmm.
doesn't, it's like, I always use that analogy about the stone in the shoe. You have a
Mm.
little pebble, tiniest of pebble, and you put that in your shoe and you walk on it and you walk on it and you walk on it and you walk, it starts to feel like it's huge.
Right.
And then when you take off your shoe, you actually pour it out. It's actually just a small little
A
pebble,
tiny thing that
right?
causing so much.
Because it's causing so much, because it was small when it started. But because we've left it and we've continued to walk around it or walk on it or avoid it, it's just got bigger and bigger and bigger.
Yeah.
So we need to nip those things in the bud, but have deep, meaningful conversation. And I know some men are, and it's not bashing men, but no, some men are not necessarily the talkers. You know, women tend to be more articulate with talk and expressing their emotions. But men have to get to that point, again, understand the part of understanding their wives, that she needs to be heard. She needs me to listen to her.
Yeah. It's interesting. I heard only last week, as I was passing, I heard this discussion online where this guy was saying that men, they are emotional too.
They are.
He said, listen, when they go to a game and their team is winning,
Yes, they're all over
they're
each
not
other.
going to sit down and say, well, I believe my team has just won. It's no, yeah, shout, high five, all of that. That's emotion.
It's emotion.
Even if the team loses,
It's even more
well,
emotion.
I believe, well, my team just did not win.
No.
No, a lot of
Very
emotion.
upset.
Man, look, he played bad, he could have do that. In other words, they have the ability.
Of course.
So therefore, they just need to tap into that side,
Personal emotion.
personal emotion when it comes to the relationship, and it calls for a lot of vulnerability. Sometimes it's important that you even discuss triggers, discuss healing process, where you are in this.
But men are not trained, socialized to be vulnerable, because they're supposed to be the providers, the protectors, the strong, the strong man. So in order for them to become vulnerable, that's almost like stripping away their manhood, like their ego, everything is gone.
So then what you're telling women now in this role here, in other words, he should have a willingness to want to be vulnerable, but it may not happen right away. Some may be more ahead of the game than others. But the important thing as women that you have this consciousness where you might have to initiate. Because don't forget, the woman you tend to be the nurturers.
Yes.
Right? So as you talk, spend time together, get used to each other, you find you can create that comfort zone where he can feel comfortable to be himself and ask questions.
Goes back to trust, because he also needs to trust
But
you.
that is
For
absolutely.
him to be vulnerable, he has to then trust. So you, as the woman, as the wife, you have to display your trustworthiness also.
True.
Because you can't expect what you're not prepared to give out. Right? So we can't say, oh, well, I want him, he needs to, I need to trust him and he needs to be trustworthy. But then yet he hears you talking on the phone to your friend about him, or talking about other people or something, which questions your trustworthiness.
Right.
He is not going to then feel comfortable or safe to be vulnerable.
That's a point too. And the thing about trust as well is very important that you be consistent with it.
That's
To
all
be
part of being
consistent.
trustworthy, though, isn't
Yeah,
it? That
yeah.
is part of trustworthy.
And when I say consistent with it in good times and in bad times.
Particularly in bad, I think. Because it's easy to do anything when it's good times.
It's true.
It's really easy to do anything in
When
the good
everything is
times.
good.
But when the chips are down and backs are against the wall, I feel that's when you start to see the true nature of a person, male or female.
It's true.
So I think, especially in the hard times, is when you need to really display that trustworthiness, that loyalty, that love, that appreciation, all those things.
Yeah.
To ensure that intimacy it stays connected.
And there's this other element as well. We could talk about intimacy as well in terms of the person feeling known or feeling heard, or let's say known. So the question might come up then, how do I make him feel as though you know him or you understand him?
Good question.
Because that's what comes out.
Good
They'll
question.
blush if you went and you buy something and oh that's what he likes or that's his flavor. Oh,
Mm.
you remembered.
Mhm.
Yes, but how can we intentionally understand or make sure we know the
I mean,
spouse?
I'm not sure if you ever will know somebody like
Mm-hmm.
100% because I personally don't even believe that we know ourselves. Like, because certain
Ah,
situations you would think, I would never do that, I'd never do that. And then a situation arises and you do something different.
but I still think you'll have
So, no, no,
a.
no, 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 let me finish. So, I think there's,
Mm-hmm.
so you have an idea, that's what I'm saying, you have an idea
Yeah,
of about what you would do and what you wouldn't do. But
right.
until you're, like they say, until you walk in my shoes, until you experience certain things,
Mm-hmm.
sometimes you won't always know what you will do.
Mm-hmm.
But I think, particularly in marriage, you become one flesh. So, I mean, my goodness, you should be taking the time to really find out about this person.
But do you know, as you say so, the scripture said that the man should dwell with the wife according to knowledge.
Knowledge,
And that you just use that word
right?
knowledge there.
So, that's what I'm saying. So you're supposed to be taking your time. Remember, knowledge is about information,
Mm-hmm.
and then we got to use the wisdom in terms of how to apply it,
Mm-hmm.
right? So having that knowledge. So how do we acquire knowledge? We research, we
Mm-hmm.
observe, we experience, we take the time. To acquire knowledge. When you go and do your degree, or you go and do your certificate, or you go and do your ministry, whatever, you take your time to acquire, to do your research. It should be no different with your partner.
I'm glad you
Should
mentioned
be
that.
no different with your partner. So you should be taking the time to learn your husband, to learn your wife, and understand what it is they don't like or what they like, and the things that they don't like, you try your very hardest not to do, and the things that they do like,
Mm-hmm.
you go out of your way to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I think that's how we should be intentional. We've used that word so many times in different things, but it is true. Your heart, because everything's a heart issue
Mm-hmm.
as well. So in your heart, you should be intentional about acquiring the knowledge of your spouse.
Yeah.
And that takes work, that takes time, especially if they've upset you for the morning, and whatever, you think, I don't want to see this person ever again, and all those kind of things, they come out. But in your heart,
Mm-hmm.
deep down in your heart, you love this person
Mm-hmm.
and you want the best for them. And I
Correct.
think in marriage, when if you've gone into marriage with the right heart and the right intention, I'm not saying it'll be easy, but it'll be easier because
Mm-hmm.
the foundation was strong from the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
So your intention has always been to ensure that that person is happy, that person is comfortable. And if the both of you have come into that relationship wanting to make the other person comfortable and happy, then it's a win-win.
Good. So I have a question here. How much do we go, or how far do we go to make that person happy with that level of intimacy? And I would say, I'll ask because, I've heard, in some marriages, where intimacy for, let's say, the husband
Mm-hmm.
was to have the attention of his wife almost 100%.
Wow.
Being told, well, you know, you won't have friends outside of the marriage, you'll just focus on us because, you want to make sure the marriage works.
Red flag.
And I'm talking about in a Christian setting.
Wow.
You want to focus on the marriage and make sure it works. So, the guy was never comfortable with the wife having friend or
Mm.
friends. And if any came around, he gave them this look, and that would be the last time
They would be
they'll
allowed to
be
enter the
in
house.
that. You understand what I'm saying?
Wow.
How far do we go with this? Yes, we want to create that safe place, create that intimacy, but then what happens when, let's say, the husband, or it could be the other way around too,
Mm.
wants more than that? Want all of the attention, I don't know how to put it, but wants a lot of your time.
I mean, I don't think there's anything wrong with wanting to spend time with your husband or your wife. I don't think there's anything wrong with taking time out to build your relationship, particularly if you're newly married and stuff like that. You might want to set aside, a few months where it's just you and him or and her,
A
you
year.
know, huh?
Scripture
What?
made reference to a year.
Okay, there you go. So,
Yeah.
you will take that time to get to know each other. I have no issue with that. I think
Mhm.
because when we had our coffee morning, one of the ladies was saying, marriage is a serious thing. That was
It's
that was the
very
that was the
serious. It
that was the ended
is.
up being our theme for that day, wasn't it? That
Yes,
that marriage was
marriage
a
is a
serious
serious
thing,
thing.
and so it is serious. And I think with anything that is serious, we take time with it.
Mhm.
We take time with our newborn babies. We
Mhm.
take time when we're pregnant. It takes a whole 9 months and then some. So
Mhm.
anything that is important takes time.
Mhm.
And I think if you're really, as I said, your heart and your intention is on your marriage, you will take time
Mhm.
with it.
Mhm.
So if you have to take that year or the 6 months or whatever it is
Mhm.
to take that time, that's fine.
Mhm.
I think after that, or like as kind of the foundation for your marriage is that you don't have any other friends, you don't.
Mhm.
Personally, for me, I think that is a red flag for me
Mhm.
personally.
Mhm.
Personally, um, I think your spouse could have reservations about particular friends you may have for various reasons, and that's
Mhm.
fine. You have a discussion about it.
Mhm.
But to say to have no friends and to have no external kind of
Yeah.
interest, I'm all for one flesh, but I'm all for that.
I
But
like
I
that.
think there is elements where you're still a human being, you're still an individual,
That is it. You're
right?
still an individual, a person, and you cannot lose your individuality in marriage because it's because of who you are. In other words, there are certain things about you he
Mm.
appreciated when he met
Met you,
you,
exactly.
and he would have complimented you from the very beginning,
Or she.
or she, of
But we're
course.
talking
But
about men,
you
we're
know how
women.
it is. We are
Yeah,
women,
we're
all right.
women.
So I'm talking
Yeah.
in terms of male, right? So there are certain things he would have complimented me for. So therefore, if I lose that individuality, after a while, what it is that
But
you're
you
really
like.
contributing
Correct.
or bringing into the relationship.
Correct.
It's just like we go to a restaurant. Are you going to eat the same thing every day, or you're going to try a different flavor here and there?
Mm.
You know. So I think it all comes back to balance.
Yes. And one of your favorite scriptures you talk about balance.
Mm-hmm.
Can't remember it off the top of my
I'm
head
just
now.
trying to get
I'm
it
trying to
through.
remember now.
But it's
Balance is.
like, too much.
Yeah.
Too much is not too good.
Yes.
So you
That's not the
have to,
scripture, by the
it's
way.
not the scripture, but
But it
it's
talks about balance,
inspired,
inspired by the balance
right?
scripture.
So it's
Yes.
very important that we recognize that sense of balance where you have enough time to be with yourself and you can recreate, you can rest, you have time to be with your loved ones and your friends, but always keeping in mind that your spouse, he has that access to you, he has that opportunity, she can spend time and really grow because when it comes to relationship, it really takes time to know, and especially when it is new, it really calls for
Mm,
time and intention.
an
And yes,
investment.
we know the topic is about sex and
Mm-hmm.
intimacy, but we know sex is talked about so much, and sex is like the physical
The physical
aspect,
act.
the, the,
Yeah.
the, the physical aspect, but the intimacy thing is something that it takes, I don't know, I could be wrong, it takes a lot more intention. There are so many facets that you need to be conscious of, the emotional, psychological, and all of those things. And once you can have that kind of connection that is created or something that you're learning about, then when it comes to the physical aspect, it flows over into that,
Mm,
and
mm.
they lend each other support, sex and intimacy, and so that it can build the relationship. Because a person could know all the right moves,
Yeah.
they can know all the right moves, but if they're not intimate, if they're not caring, if they're not acting like they appreciate you, it's like,
What are we doing?
what happening here?
Yeah. Ship is sailing, but it's not sailing.
Ain't sailing in the
It's
same
saying it's
direction.
not sailing
And
right.
as I say, I'm feeling this,
Exactly.
and you don't want to ever come to that position
Mm,
where you're just going through the act.
mm. Definitely.
as a child of God.
Yes.
You should be
Yes.
able to enjoy the entire process
Definitely.
because it's two persons together.
It's true. And I think, because we spoke about before, it's kind of like the word sex in general and how it, it is taboo within the church. And, even as adult women, when we say sex, you sometimes have a little bit of a response to it because of the way the world, I think, has taken sex and made it so accessible, so easy, so flippant, so kind of unimportant, that you can just do it anywhere, get it from anyone, it's not a problem. Even in the world, we talked about women's purity and stuff. Even in the world outside of Christendom, it was still frowned upon if women had lots of sexual partners and so on, right?
Yeah.
But now it's like women are, and young girls, girls I'm in contact with, and young women I'm in contact with, it's not a problem that they've had numerous sexual partners, unmarried, right? It's not an issue. So the immorality around sex now is like there's hardly any. It doesn't matter as a male or female. I've heard young people who are 16, 17 and being mocked because they haven't had sex yet.
Yes. Yep. Imagine
right?
that.
Can you imagine that? Not had sex yet. What are you, a soft
13.
boy and this and that and the other? And then they're bragging, oh, I've had sex since I was 12, since I was 13. There's the sexual immorality or immorality around external marriage, sex, or I've come to the word extra, no, what's the word I'm looking for? Mixture marital, no. I can't remember, but having sex outside of marriage, let's put it that way. Outside of marriage is not taboo anymore. It's like it doesn't matter.
But it comes across, and I've heard it. Oh, it's natural.
That's what I'm saying. Sex is natural. It's God ordained. It's natural,
yes,
but it's not
the context.
Exactly, it's not natural. That is part of growing up, or it's part of your puberty process, or your adolescence process, or your courting process. It's natural within the confines of marriage. Right?
Wow.
But we're seeing it as natural, as in you can just have it anytime, any place, anywhere.
But you see, they're not recognizing, and that's the thing about it, they're not recognizing that each time you have sex with someone, it's not just a physical act.
It's spiritual.
It's a spiritual, emotional, all of that. And I've heard it said where persons got involved with each other and they found that in their behavior certain traits that came from the other partner that wasn't really a part of their lives. So they had to go through soul ties, breaking soul ties, soul ties, so that they can be free from that thing. So you have to be so wise about it, because actually those soul ties can affect the level of intimacy
with your future,
or with your spouse. You understand? So all of these things, it has to be dealt with, and this is part of intimacy.
Of course.
You have to deal with the past. Don't think, oh, I forget, and you have to deal with it.
From a spiritual
aspect,
not from a physical. I think that's what people...
physical, you're separated.
Yeah, of course.
Separate ways, but...
Yeah. But the spiritual... And I think sometimes it can be hard for people to know that there is still that spiritual connection. Because as you said, they focus on the physical. But they don't realise that something that their new spouse does is a trigger. But it's a trigger because it was triggered from back then. Not that that's just not what I like. It's because you're still connected, and you're still connected. So that is why you have to be conscious and cognizant of the seriousness of sex, because it's not just about. And I think we need to teach that to our young people, because it's okay saying to young people, don't have sex. It's against God's will. You've got to wait till you're married. It's very easy to say that, but when they're bombarded with culture, with society, they're out mixing in schools and universities with non-Christian other young people. Temptation, even as adults in Christ, is difficult, So imagine for young people who are in Christ,
Mm-hmm.
it's just as hard. So I think we have to do more than just say don't have sex.
Yeah.
We have to teach them about the soul ties,
Mm-hmm.
the impact of soul ties, the
Yeah.
spiritual aspect,
And the
because that would frighten me.
consequences. Yeah. That'll put a lot
If
of
I'd
things
heard
in
that in 16,
perspective.
17, that would that must frighten.
Yeah.
It frightens me as an adult, like to think, oh my gosh. So we need to talk to young people as well, so that when they then mature
Mm-hmm.
and get married, they don't face some of the challenges
Yeah.
that we see today, because they've been taught, they've been, they've
Yeah.
been advised, they've been privy to certain things. Obviously, certain things they have to experience for themselves,
Mm-hmm.
but again, it's about knowledge, gathering that research,
Yeah.
gathering that information to make an informed choice.
And that's what Paul talked about, where the older women will
Yeah.
talk to the younger ones. And the reason for that transference of knowledge is that when it goes over, they can build on it.
Mm.
If my generation fell in the hole, I don't see why the next
This generation
generation
should.
should. We should be able to build a bridge to help them
Mm-hmm.
overcome that thing.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's why we do ministry, and that
Yes,
is
right.
why we're talking to young women, we're
Mm-hmm.
talking to women on a whole.
Exactly.
Yeah, and by the way we approach it is that by talking to women, they're in a position where they can bless their brothers, they can bless the family, and it's a mutual,
Exchange.
connection.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
cannot be a successful woman and not affect, if you're married, your husband,
Correct.
not affect your son,
Mm.
not affect people in your environment, and
Mm-hmm.
that is how we look at it.
That's right.
And saying that, coming back to intimacy, I'm still on to that
Yeah,
because
yeah.
that is very important. Intimacy. Some things we can tell women that men need in order to feel intimate. Because we say, yes, the emotional aspect and um, I'm being heard, that makes me feel I'm valued. That brings that level of intimacy. But then, from the guy's point of view, they need certain things
Oh,
from us,
absolutely. Absolutely.
from us as well. So it's not a matter of just saying,
One
oh, he
side.
doesn't do this and what does he need?
Mm.
What does he need? And
That's getting back to knowing
coming
your
back to
husband,
knowing
right?
your husband,
Knowing your
and this
husband.
starts even from courtship,
Yes.
trying to find out, what's important to
Mm.
him, what it is he need. So here it
Do we
is.
do that? Sorry, before you
No, go
do
ahead.
that,
Hmm.
I'm not sure that, and I could be speaking out of turn, I could be completely wrong, but I'm just going from experience and
Hmm.
observations.
Do we do that?
Do we do? Do we do that?
Honestly?
Honestly,
No,
I don't think so.
I don't think
I don't
so.
think we consider men's emotional needs like that as women.
I'm thinking of my younger self.
Yeah, yeah,
I'm
definitely,
thinking of my
definitely,
younger
definitely.
self. Of
Not
my
now.
younger self.
Yeah,
You were just looking for an environment that you feel,
comfortable,
safe
safe, and
and
comfortable.
comfortable.
Mm.
So you
Didn't
just
really.
go out, you laugh, you feel comfortable. You're going to church.
Yeah,
Sometimes you
yeah,
go to church together and you worship,
yeah.
and the ignorance that existed, that you figure once you believe you're in God's will,
It's fine.
everything will flow
Mhm.
and work out, and you know.
Mm.
And sometimes you're not even privy to what really their purpose, what they're about. They just seem happy and everybody's going around, and
Round.
then they say, oh, well, the next step is marriage.
Yeah.
You understand? Or as they would say, and you start to feel a little burning going on. So you say, right, you know what? Let's cap this off and marry because we don't want to sin,
That's right.
right? But the level of trying to understand the person
I don't think we do that enough.
needs to be, how should I say, primary
Yeah.
in the mind, even before you're laughing and having fun.
Yes. Yeah.
Understanding the person and what they need and what makes them feel happy, what makes them feel relaxed. That's the first thing, really.
Mm.
And as time goes on, you're able to build on that, build the friendship, build. Because at the end of the day, love is still a choice.
It is.
I choose to be with you as opposed to anybody
Anybody
else,
else.
and you have to know your whys.
Mhm. Mhm.
Because when the test comes,
That's what keeps you.
that's what keep you.
That's what keeps you the wise.
All right.
Yeah.
So they say men need physical affection. They like cuddling, they like touch as well.
Who would have thought?
Who would have thought?
No, I know that, but it's true. They do.
Yeah,
They do. They
you
do.
pass, you give them a little tap
Tap
or
or
touch,
touch.
or you
Yep.
rub the head or
Yep.
whatever.
Yep.
You know the spot that they will
Yep. Right.
fancy
Yep. Yep.
from
It's
experience.
correct.
So therefore,
Or
you
from it
know,
communicating.
uh,
Or from communication.
yeah,
Mm.
you get to find out
Find out
what
what.
it is. So therefore, you have to be mindful of that as a woman. Then the other thing is the big one, respect.
That is just the biggest.
The
And
big
it's in the
one,
Bible too. The scripture.
respect. They want to know that they feel acknowledged, you appreciate what it is they're doing, things of that nature.
The Bible says that
Help
the
us.
man's supposed to love the wife, the woman's supposed to respect.
Yes.
And men, and you will hear men say all the time, she don't respect me. You don't really hear them say, oh, she don't really love me, per se. But they will say, she don't respect me. Or if you hear young boys talking and they're in a little bit of a confrontation with somebody, oh, he or she's disrespectful, man. Respect is a big thing for men. They will always say respect, 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 or focus on respect. So yeah, I think.
So how do we show respect? When he is talking, let him finish a sentence. when when you need something done, you don't. The word is nag. No, I'll go that word nag. Don't nag. In other words,
But what's nagging?
that is it. I'll go with the word, but then we'll qualify it.
Yeah.
All right, because if you are asking something to be done, it's the way it says, man, you need to get this bucket of water placed by this thing. You mean bucket of water still there? I asked you that since last week and the thing's still there.
That's nagging?
Wait a minute. So that is
That's
1 o'clock,
okay.
2 o'clock,
Oh jeez. That's a bit excessive.
3 o'clock.
Yeah, yeah.
It's
Yeah.
just the manner.
Yeah.
And as you always say, tone.
Yes.
Tone is everything. The tone is everything. So I guess it's just a matter of how we do it.
Okay.
How we do it. You can ask, you can remind, but in a loving way. Some people will say, oh, no matter what I say or what, it just isn't being done. Is that something we can help with? Or what experience you have to recognize?
I'm just thinking.
Mm-hmm.
I think again back to communication.
Mm-hmm.
Because again, men and women think very differently.
True.
So when you say 9 times out of 10, when a woman says, "Can you do X, Y, and Z?" We want it done now. So when it's not done now, like what I told you ever since, and that ever since could be an hour ago because we wanted it done an hour ago. So my thing that works for me, I will say, can I have such and such done by 4? Can that work for you? And then if 4 o'clock come and it ain't done, all of a sudden you see people jumping up and getting ready to do what they've got to do because there was an agreement and you've broken the agreement now.
Right.
Whereas if you say, I want that moved, or can you move that, or can you do this? What you're saying is basically they can do it on their own time. You're not actually saying, you're
Right.
not communicating that you want it done now.
Understood.
So you either tell, there was a workshop at work, they said, you speak well and you write well, but can you communicate well? So I'm saying, I want this done. For me, I feel I'm communicating that I want it done now, but he's not hearing that. He's hearing that you want it moved at some point.
Right. As you say so, communication. I remember hearing this over Instagram, where this man, his wife called him and said, honey, before you go to bed, put the pots in the refrigerator. And so by the next morning, she went in the refrigerator, all the pots were in the refrigerator. So then she said, well, honey, how you can do this? And it's through that exchange, he found out when she says that means take the things out of the pot, put them in the containers, and then put that in the refrigerator.
How she get that done?
You should see Colin's expression, right? And of course, wash the pots and put it up.
how did she communicate? How was he
But
supposed to get that?
it's the same thing as you were just saying. That's why I brought it up.
Wow.
So we have
Right,
to
okay.
be
So
clear
you've got to be
on
clear on what you're hearing.
communicating so everyone has a clear understanding of what is needed and when it is needed, and then can it be done at that time and it work.
Yes. And I
So,
think because, again, part of good communication is asking the person, what did they hear? What did you hear me say?
mhm,
To make sure that they got, because sometimes when you speak to somebody, it lands on them differently than what you intended.
true.
So they hear something because of their own experiences or biases or whatever, they hear something completely different from
Mhm.
what you had said or
And
what your intention. Remember, we can't see intention.
and that is why part of the communication is coming to this agreement
Mm-hmm.
that before we respond to anything said by anyone, we get clarity first.
Exactly. What did you
So
hear?
whole response is, what do you understand by so and
Yeah,
so? What did you mean by X, Y, and Z?
that's all.
And then you take it
Clarity.
from there. Make sure you have clarity. In other
Clarity.
words, do not talk to him as though you're talking to one of the children.
No. Even though they might be behaving like a children nowadays. But we're not supposed to do that. I saw a meme saying if you there's was it two things inside of a man? There's a
Mhm.
boy and a king, and whichever one you speak to
Right, is the one that
is one that
represents.
one that presents. If you speak to him like a boy, he'll behave like a boy.
Mm-hmm.
But if you speak to him like a king, then
He'll
you will
come
get the
out,
king.
the
Yeah,
kingly
you
rulership
can
coming
come to
out
come
there.
out. Yeah, because that goes
It's
back to that
interesting. And I
respect.
mean, there could be such a wonderful exchange between couples if they
Mm.
would make time to
Listen.
understand and listen to each other and help one another
Mm.
understand each other too.
Mm.
Because again, I can hear you, but the way you explain it, I could still walk around with a different picture. But when we are sitting and you can fully discuss what is thought of, felt, and meant, you can both walk away with clarity.
I think you're right. I agree with you. But
Mm-hmm.
what just hit me is going back to, again to that trust thing,
Mm-hmm.
because if you were to tell me something, Sherry, I trust you
Mm-hmm.
implicitly. So if you tell me something, I'm gonna be like, yeah, well, you know what? I don't like it. I
Mm-hmm.
don't like it, but I trust her.
Mm-hmm.
I know what she's saying is from a place of love.
Definitely.
My what would you say, twinned in spirit,
Twin and
etc.
spirit.
You
Yeah, yeah.
understand? So it will land. It might still hurt. It might still upset me or whatever. But deep down, I know
The
that what you have
motive.
said was pure, was true, was
Mm-hmm.
like, okay, Colleen, get rid of that. Deal
Yeah.
with what she told you. If you don't have that trust with your spouse, you could talk to the cows come home, as they say in England. It is never going to land properly.
I'm telling you.
It is never
Trust.
going to land. So
I
trust
tell you,
is even more serious,
without trust
really.
in any relationship, without trust, nothing
Go,
cooking.
go, not there.
And that is why, especially within marriage, it is so important. Both the male and the female, we do everything
To
within
maintain that
our
trust.
power to maintain the trust.
Yeah.
The way you represent your spouse when you go out.
Out.
This
Yes.
Barbados
Yes.
is too small
Mm.
to be up in
But even now
everybody's.
with social media, the world is too small.
There
To
you
be
go.
honest,
There you go. Somebody
the
could see
world is too
somebody in an
honest.
overly intimate posture, take a
Yes.
picture and send it back to the
Do you know how many
wife.
times I've seen people at airports and on planes and stuff like that? And you're like, oh my God, what a coincidence.
You
The
understand?
world
Or
is
you
a
going
small.
out in the night way.
Yeah.
That is fun.
So Scott, exactly.
You understand what I'm saying? So that is, and these all of these
Exactly.
things you discuss even
Yeah,
in
yeah, yeah.
courtship.
You're representing
What
your
does
spouse,
marriage
man.
mean for you? What does, intimacy mean for you? When you feel bored with me, what are you going
What
to
to
do?
do? Yeah. Or we're going
Look
through a
over
rough
the
patch.
fence and say, oh,
The
there's looking
grass.
green,
Looking real pretty.
looking real pretty. And knowing that someone behind there either watering that garden or it's just a mirage.
Definitely.
And the important thing is sometimes you have everything for you to have a green lawn, but you just
Mm.
will not settle down and water
Water it.
it.
Because we see what we want to see, you know. We see what we want to see.
Yeah, but the C2 work.
That's what I'm
Intimate
saying.
relationship is work.
Mm-hmm.
But I call it pleasurable work because
Pleasurable
once
work.
you put it in there, the benefit reaped is
It's
beyond.
beyond. Absolutely.
It's wonderful when you know you have a partner that you can absolutely trust.
Yes.
And you know they have your back.
Mm-hmm.
And you know that even if you're home or you're at work, they are representing
Continue.
you. Because when they go, wherever they go, that ring you place on their hand is there. And I wish people understood that and, foster that, because all of this affect intimacy. I know that for sure. You
Yeah,
understand?
yeah.
From time that is broken, even if you're trying to be intimate with the person,
It's not.
you just
Your mind is just
their
elsewhere.
mind
Your
is
mind is,
elsewhere.
yeah, yeah.
So we have
So
to
good.
do what is needed. So yeah, it talks about emotional support. Emotional support. Men need emotional support.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Hmm.
Definitely.
Interesting. And also shared activities. So some of their interest things that they like doing, whether it is games,
And
whatever,
sports or whatever.
sports, you have to
Showing
make time
interest.
for it. Yeah, you have to make
Oof,
time for it.
it's a
This has
toughie.
nothing to do with personality. Listen, this has nothing to do with
That's hard.
personality.
That's hard.
And for me, in other words, I say it has nothing to do with personality, but it affects you. And put it in a practical way. If your husband or partner is an introvert and they like to have quiet times, and you're the person 7 days a week, I know I'm being exaggerating, but 7 days a week you have to go out or do something. At some point, you'll have to learn to slow down, make time for those quiet moments. And you'll find you learn from it too.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah,
You
yeah.
get enough time to think, to discuss, to share, and all of that. So it's a matter of
It's balance, always
balance,
balance, and
finding that
communication.
balance.
Everybody has to be
Everything is,
intentional and at working. We can't all be one-sided, so that's a given.
and always coming back to that word communication here.
Yeah, it's yeah.
So apart from shared activity, no, they put sexual connection, but at the bottom of the list. Interesting. I don't think it is ranked according to
No,
preference, but hey,
but some people would think that men put
mm-hmm,
more emphasis on the sexual contact than anything else,
mm-hmm,
even though a man's way of showing connection and likability can be done
mm-hmm,
through the sexual act.
mm.
I think
That's it. I'm
a
mature.
mature man, um, in every aspect, will say that yes, sex is important, but there's a lot more or else going on than
Mm-hmm.
just
Yeah,
good sex, for
exactly.
example. But yeah, mature
Mm-hmm.
person.
Mm-hmm. Because I've heard it. They're saying you're looking for the kind of character, her personality, how kind she
Yep.
is she
How she
loving,
treats the
how
children
she
or
treats the
whatever. Yeah,
children,
yeah.
how she treats his goals and his
Mm.
expectations. All of these come into play into making it work. And that, as you said, a mature person who's settled and know
You
all
got all those
what they're
things
about.
about. Yeah,
It's very
yeah.
important. So you can't get away from sex. You cannot get away from intimacy in marriage.
No.
Some people, the jumping back to sex a little bit, they're saying the issue about for some women that when they reach a certain age, they lose interest,
Mm-hmm.
and that kind of affects the relationship. Not kind of, it affects the
Affects
relationship.
relationship.
From the reading, I've been hearing a lot about it.
Mm-hmm.
How can we address that? Sex and intimacy in marriage. What if you're over 50, over
I'm 50.
60? What do you do? I must say, I remember looking at a video. I saw this old lady, and so someone asked her the same
I think I know what you're talking
question.
about. Yeah.
She did not hold back to
Yeah,
say
I
she
heard that.
enjoys it. When he's ready, she makes herself available,
Go.
vice versa. You understand? It's not always about what you feel and what you want. It's
Mm.
about it's two of you now.
Yeah. I like the way you
Knowing,
said old. Like,
yeah,
once you
yeah.
get old, you shouldn't
You
want
shouldn't
sex
want no,
anymore.
no, no. She was
She
ready,
was up and ready and able.
and wear her hair well
Yeah, she did.
styled
She
and
kept
well
herself
kept.
correct. Yeah.
You know.
But I mean, there are, there is a process that women go through, as we know, the
Mhm.
perimenopause and menopause and postmenopause,
Mhm.
all of that,
Mhm.
that does have an effect on your libido, right? In
Definitely.
terms of how it have effect on your mood. It has a whole effect. I mean, that's a whole other podcast we could talk about in terms
Yes.
of menopause and stuff. But again, going back to that trust and communication, let your husband know that
Where
you
you're
think
at.
that you're going through menopause, or you feel that your body's changing and you don't feel certain things the way you used to before, or your body's not responding the way it used to before. And because certain where sex was very, very pleasurable, it might now be quite painful. For example, if you've got a medical condition, you've got fibroids or anything like that, all those things can affect. But if you don't speak to your husband about it and have a dialogue and your communication, then you're going to have problems, because he's just going to think that you don't find him attractive anymore, that you don't want to have sex with him anymore, that you may be seeing somebody else, and
Yeah.
all of those things.
Especially if you're working.
Exactly. And then, not that it's an excuse or any kind of justification, but then that could potentially let him start looking elsewhere and behaving differently because he feels rejected or what have you. So then starts to spiral. That small stone or pebble, which is your body changing, is now this huge boulder, because you're now doing all these different things and your body's just not responding and you haven't communicated that.
Yep. So again, it's really critical. It's very critical in terms of what we do and how we respond to each other. And I think even as we beginning to wrap up, I think as teachers at different points in our lives, we can actually give homework. You guys need to read Songs of
Solomon.
Solomon.
Woohoo!
Were you getting excited about?
Because Songs of Solomon is just amazing.
The
It's amazing.
poetry, the detailing,
Yes.
the experience of love.
Read it, and I say read it with your spouse.
And read it with it. That's good devotion there.
That's right. Let
and
Songs of Solomon be your devotion.
yeah, and you can use that to
Or
put
a
a
devotion.
light under the marriage, to keep
Yes.
things sparked. There's always a way to keep things spark, and I know the world might have different means, as we were talking behind the scenes,
Yeah.
in terms of looking at
Pornography
and
and
all of
sex
that,
toys and all those
sex.
things. It's like,
Listen,
leave it out, people.
that has its negative connotations and also effect on the marriage. That
Yeah,
probably is
leave it
another
out.
podcast.
It is,
But
but leave it out.
if you want something wholesome, go read Songs of Solomon together. For those of you getting married, don't read it too early. Read it
Yeah.
a couple of days.
Or maybe read it separately and then discuss.
Discuss.
For those who are getting married or
if
you're
it's
courting.
even if it's separate, it might light fires.
You would stay separate. That's what I'm
But you
saying.
will know
a
when.
phone call.
Yeah, you will know when.
Boundaries in
But
place.
you need to read it.
Yes.
Its part is not, it does not tell on your spirituality. It's good to be knowing God, speaking in tongues, everything.
Yep.
But you see, when it comes to sex, when it comes to intimacy, be great and fantastic as well. God
Definitely.
wants us to have and experience
To
all
enjoy
things
it.
to life and godliness in every
Everything.
area
Mhm.
of our lives, including sex and intimacy. So this has been another podcast.
It has. I hope they've enjoyed it.
And I hope you walked away with something that you,
A little nugget.
some
or
nugget.
two.
Yeah, something might give you a little spark to go and check it out a little bit more.
Definitely.
Or we just talk. We like to talk, and we are sharing our conversation with you.
And
Yeah.
truth in love.
And we
So
do.
go
Mhm.
away, enjoy your marriages, and
Enjoy sex.
Enjoy sex and intimacy.
And intimacy.
Peace. We out.
Take care until next time.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Hi, this is Sheridine.
And this is Colleen.
And together we are bringing you the Love Talk podcast, where we will talk about real life experiences
With a practical biblical perspective.
telling the truth in love.